This program discusses the properties and uses of the widely used fumigant methyl bromide. This program is part of an NPCA training package called An Introduction to Fumigation. Methyl bromide is a popular fumigant with hundreds of registered uses. For example, it is used as a treatment to kill all stages of food-infesting insects in warehouses, food plants, cereal plants, and in bulk grain storage structures. It can be used in fumigations under gas-proof sheets or in fumigation vaults. Wheeled vehicles, primarily trucks and railroad boxcars, can also be fumigated with methyl bromide, and ships, probably the most complex fumigation job of all, are often fumigated using methyl bromide. Homes and other structures infested with wood-destroying pests, such as termites and powder post beetles, can also be fumigated using methyl bromide. Methyl bromide is normally packaged and shipped as a liquefied gas in steel cylinders and in 1.5-pound cans. The cylinders come in various sizes. The pest control industry generally uses 10, 50, 100 or 200-pound pressurized cylinders. Although it is a liquid inside its container, methyl bromide changes or evolves into a gas when released into air that is at a temperature above its boiling point of about 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Once outside the valve, the liquid methyl bromide becomes a heavier-than-air gas and begins penetrating the surrounding area. The physical properties of methyl bromide must be considered when planning and conducting the fumigation. The gas is odorless and tasteless, and so gives no warning of its presence. Safety precautions must be followed, or hazardous amounts of the gas may be inhaled before its presence is discovered. Chloropicrin, an irritating tear gas, is sometimes added to or formulated with methyl bromide to serve as a warning agent. It is sometimes required by law. The chloropicrin makes up a small percentage of the total mixture. Another important physical property of methyl bromide that must be considered is its relatively high boiling point of 40 degrees Fahrenheit. It is for this reason that methyl bromide cannot be used to fumigate commodities whose temperature is below 40 degrees. An advantage of methyl bromide is its ability to penetrate readily into most materials. Methyl bromide is more than 3 times heavier than air. Since it is so heavy and tends to concentrate in low areas, fans are usually required in order to distribute the methyl bromide evenly throughout a building. Some materials are unsuitable for exposure to methyl bromide. A smell of rotten eggs may result from a reaction between methyl bromide and certain sulfur-containing compounds present in products such as rubber goods, furs, natural hair products, leather goods, and woolens. This smell will persist for a long period and may be permanent. The dosage of methyl bromide will differ depending on the job. The rate will depend on the commodity or product being fumigated, the pests being controlled, the tightness of the structure, and the temperature. The dosage rate is given on the label in pounds per 1,000 cubic feet or kilograms per cubic meter. Methyl bromide can be introduced into the building or space being fumigated in various ways and with different kinds of equipment. Cylinders can be placed throughout a sealed building or structure, or the cylinders may be placed outside with feed lines running into the treatment area so that the gas can be released from outside. On small jobs, methyl bromide can be released from 1.5-pound cans using the numerous dispensers available on the market. Once the fumigant has been introduced, different types of equipment may be required to distribute the gas. Because methyl bromide is heavier than air, circulating fans may be required to distribute the gas evenly. Vaporizing heaters or heat exchangers may be used to increase methyl bromide's effectiveness in cooler temperatures. Like all fumigants, methyl bromide is highly toxic. It can cause injury and death if misused. The rest of this program concentrates on safe handling and use of methyl bromide. Protective equipment is necessary when working with methyl bromide. The product label will advise you what is required. Most importantly, you must always wear an approved self-contained breathing apparatus whenever there is a risk of exposure to toxic concentrations of methyl bromide vapors. To be effective, the equipment must be in good working order and the face mask tight and free of leaks. Regular respirators are not acceptable for methyl bromide use. How do you know if methyl bromide gas is present and at what concentration? There are several devices on the market that can be used to measure gas concentration, but no single device can economically and efficiently monitor the gas at all concentration levels. The halide leak detector consists of a propane tank and a copper ring. When the propane is ignited, a blue or green halo indicates the presence of methyl bromide vapor. Halide leak detectors are not accurate at the low-level concentrations required before people can re-enter an aerated building. For these low fumigant levels, gas detection tubes are often used as a final check to ensure that a building has been successfully aerated. The readings in these tubes depend on a color change that can easily read in parts per million. A third type of methyl bromide monitoring device is the thermal conductivity analyzer, better known as GOW, MAC, or fumoscope. These devices are used to monitor levels of methyl bromide while the fumigation is in progress. A fourth type of device is the infrared detector, an expensive, sophisticated piece of equipment that will measure methyl bromide concentrations down to parts per million. They are especially useful in determining if a building is safe for occupancy. Methyl bromide is a hazardous product and must be stored and transported with extreme care. Cylinders and cans of methyl bromide should never be roughly handled or dropped, bumped, dragged, or slid. Transport methyl bromide cylinders in a secured, upright position according to state and federal Department of Transportation regulations. Never place them in closed vehicles where they occupy the same airspace as people. Always use a hand truck or other suitable device for transporting cylinders, even for a short distance. Store cylinders and cans in cool, less than 85 degrees, dry, well-ventilated and protected areas away from sources of ignition or combustible materials. Do not expose them to steam pipes, heaters, and even direct sun rays. Never store methyl bromide in workrooms, offices, or other occupied areas, or around food, feed, or drugs. Other precautions are also necessary when handling methyl bromide cylinders. Every cylinder has a metal cap or valve hood cover that protects the valve from damage or from being knocked off in an accident. When not in use, all cylinders, whether full, partially used, or empty, must have their valves closed and outlet valve caps and valve hood covers secured. Methyl bromide is toxic. To breathe it, swallow it, or let it touch your skin can be harmful. The symptoms of methyl bromide poisoning often don't appear immediately and can be delayed for up to 48 hours. Initial symptoms usually include tearing, runny nose, and coughing, followed in several hours by nausea and vomiting, dizziness, blurred vision, staggering gait, and slurred speech. Since liquid methyl bromide has a relatively low boiling point, evaporation takes place rapidly. Within seconds of a spill on exposed skin, the methyl bromide has entirely disappeared. Unfortunately, if methyl bromide is spilled on clothing or shoes, it will not quickly evaporate and will cause no particular sensation. It can remain in continuous contact with the skin and cause burns similar to normal thermal burns. When on the job, fumigators should empty their pockets and never wear rings, watches, bandages, gloves, carry cigarettes, or wear tight-fitting clothing that could retain methyl bromide and cause serious burns. And never make the mistake of wearing ordinary rubber gloves and boots, since methyl bromide will be held in contact with the skin under the rubber. Proper fumigation and safety procedures will prevent exposure to methyl bromide. However, an accident could happen. At the first sign of possible methyl bromide poisoning or spill and exposure, everyone should quickly leave the contaminated area. Discard all contaminated clothing and wash any methyl bromide from the skin with soap and water, and from the eyes with water, for at least 15 minutes. Call a physician as soon as possible, and then take the victim to a physician or call an ambulance. If someone has been breathing methyl bromide gas, keep the affected operator warm and quiet. If breathing stops, give artificial respiration or CPR. The final point in this program should be obvious to everyone. When fumigating, work by the buddy system when appropriate. In fumigation, you rarely get a second chance. Now, let's quickly review the highlights of this program on methyl bromide fumigation. You've seen that methyl bromide is a very popular and versatile fumigant with hundreds of federally registered uses. It is packaged in steel cylinders and in small cans. Although it is a liquid inside its container, methyl bromide changes or evolves into a gas when released into the air at a temperature above its boiling point of 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Methyl bromide has several characteristic properties that must be considered when planning or conducting a fumigation. It is odorless and tasteless. It can penetrate rapidly into most materials. It is 3 times heavier than air, so fans are usually required to prevent uneven distribution of gas. And some materials are unsuitable for fumigation with methyl bromide because of an unpleasant and sometimes permanent smell that can result from a reaction between certain sulfur compounds and methyl bromide. We've shown that the dosage rate for methyl bromide will vary on different jobs depending on the commodity being fumigated, the pests being controlled, the tightness of the structure, and the temperature. And you've seen a number of different methods of applying methyl bromide and various types of equipment required for these applications. Like all fumigants, methyl bromide is highly toxic and presents hazards that require protective equipment. Whenever there is a risk of exposure to methyl bromide vapors, you must wear an approved, self-contained breathing apparatus. Regular cartridge respirators are not acceptable. We've illustrated the different types of devices that are used to detect and monitor the presence of methyl bromide. These are the halide leak detector, gas detection tube, thermal conductivity analyzer, and infrared detector. Methyl bromide must be stored and transported with extreme care. The cylinders and cans should never be subjected to rough handling, placed near heat or flame sources, or stored in occupied areas. Methyl bromide cylinders should be transported in an upright position and never placed in closed vehicles in the same airspace as passengers. A hand truck or similar piece of equipment should always be used for transporting cylinders for short distances. You have seen how important the valve hood cover is for safety. When not in use, all cylinders must have their valves closed and outlet valve caps and covers secured. We have discussed methyl bromide poisoning and first aid. Methyl bromide can cause acute poisoning after inhalation, chronic poisoning after low but harmful exposure over a period of time, or burns after skin or eye contact from spills or high vapor concentrations. At the first sign of methyl bromide poisoning or spill and exposure, everyone should quickly leave the contaminated area. Discard all contaminated clothing and wash any methyl bromide from the skin with soap and water, and from the eyes with water for 15 minutes. Call a physician as soon as possible and get medical help. In the case of an inhalation exposure, Keep the affected operator warm and quiet. If breathing stops, give artificial respiration or CPR. Finally, work by the buddy system whenever appropriate. This concludes the National Pest Control Association's training program, Methyl bromide.